Investigators in California looking into the second death of an African-American man in the home of Democratic megadonor Ed Buck over the span of less than 2 years. The man, now being identified as 55-year-old Timothy Dean, he died of an apparent overdose. Back in July of 2017, 26-year-old Gemmel Moore was found dead of a meth overdose in the same apartment. Our next guest has been sounding the alarm on Ed Buck for over a year. Journalist and political commentator Jasmyne Cannick joins us right now, live from LA with more. Jasmyne, good morning to you.
Good morning.
Let's start at the beginning. Who is Ed Buck?
Ed Buck is a major donor to the California Democratic Party, as well as a lot of its elected members. He's given lots and lots of money. He's a well-known animal rights activist, as well as an LGBT activist.
And you, Jasmyne, have been sounding the alarm. I think it was about 6 months ago. You essentially said, don't be surprised if something like what happened to Gemmel Moore happens again. And now, lo and behold, sadly, it's happened again.
Yes, we told them back in July of 2017, after numerous young men contacted me and told me about the very same sort of experiences that Gemmel Moore had written about in his journal, that there was a pattern here, that this man was a predator, and that if they didn't stop him, that there was going to be another person that was going to die inside of Ed Buck's house. And 6 months after our district attorney, Jackie Lacey, declined to prosecute Ed Buck and Gemmel Moore's death, we have Timothy Dean, who was found dead.
Indeed. You've been doing some great reporting on this, and in fact, after Gemmel Moore died, you became friends with some of his friends, and you were able to look at a journal that detailed some of the things that allegedly Mr. Buck had done.
Right. So when Gemmel passed away, his journal was on him. For whatever reason, the sheriff's detectives must not have looked through his belongings. And so when his belongings were collected from the morgue, we had the journal. And in the journal, he detailed how Ed Buck hooked him on crystal meth, had given him his first injection of crystal meth. It's such a painful, painful journal that I'm sure that young man never thought the world would ever read. And he told us exactly what happened to him. And after that journal was published, after I published that, that's when the sheriff's department decided to open a homicide investigation, but a lot of evidence from Ed Buck's apartment was already destroyed and gone.
All right. You said with Ed Buck and the death they're investigating right now regarding 55-year-old Timothy Dean. Here's a statement from Mr. Buck's attorney on the death. Listen to this, Jasmyne.
The individual came over, had already been partying, apparently had already taken some substances. This is a situation where Mr. Buck has had longtime friends who unfortunately do not handle their life well.
When you hear him say that, what do you think?
He's getting paid to say that. If I was getting paid, I'd be doing that job as well. The fact of the matter is, 2 black men have died in this man's house of an overdose within 18 months. And that is not a coincidence. Like I said, we have nearly a dozen young men who have come forward, who are sharing their stories with detectives, who have spoken to me. This is a pattern. This is a practice of Ed Buck. It is very clear that if he is not stopped, there will be a third body.
You have been a Democratic activist for a while. You worked on Capitol Hill. You worked in California politics. This is very upsetting to you personally. Why, regarding the Democratic Party?
Because over 77% of black people in California vote Democrats. We vote for Democrats. It is a shame that when something like this happens, when you have the chair of your state party, who at the time was Eric Bauman, who was very good friends with Ed Buck, was willing to turn a blind eye as well as instruct others not to speak on it. As a black woman, as a black Democrat, I expect more from my party. That is not the type of investment that black people expect from Democrats. When we're being killed, when we are being hurt and we are being harmed, we expect the Democratic Party to stand up for what's right. If it was someone who was white, if it was a white gay man, I feel like the Democratic Party would have took a completely different position. But because these are young black gay men who are largely invisible, I feel like my party just feels like they're not worth it. And that's absolutely wrong.
Well, the law enforcement out in California are looking into the cause of death for Mr. Timothy Dean. Let's see what happens with that.